My name's Cody Smith.
I'm Tierra Penner.
Hi there, I'm Tim Ocampo.
And the three of us are the hosts of The Last Podbender.
It's episode 12.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Last Podbender. On this episode, we are looking at episode 12 of Avatar: The Last Airbender, and it is entitled The Storm. So in this episode, basically, the gang is out of money. They go to a town to try and buy some food with no money. I don't know. The plan initially was flawed from the beginning, so...
I feel like they're kids and they forgot that they didn't have it.
Yeah, anyways, plan was flawed from the beginning. Sokka ends up on a fishing boat because this guy and his wife, I guess, get into an argument about a storm coming. And the guy's like, well, I'll find another person. And Sokka goes onto the fishing boat. The old man is actually very mean towards Aang and, like, you know...
Realistic, though.
Not really. I feel... Anyways,
I feel like a lot of people feel the same way as the old man.
We can get it. How about I do the exposition of the episode first?
She's ready to go.
Can I get through the episode summary before
Sure,
we get
quick
into
draw
it?
right there.
Go ahead. But if we were cowboys, I would have just shot you.
The man is very mean to Aang.
I don't think he was mean. Justified.
Once he finds out that he's the Avatar, Aang flies away, hides in a cave. Katara goes to find him. They have a very touching moment, and we kind of find out a little bit more about Aang's backstory, how he became the Avatar, and like why he left the Air Temple. In turn, we also have Uncle Iroh and Zuko back in this episode. They weren't in the last episode, which kind of sucked.
Zuko is also very mean in this episode.
Zuko starts
I think he's
out...
completely just. Sorry. That's enough, Tim. Sorry.
Zuko starts off very mean. Also, Iroh knows about the storm. Zuko's like, no, we're going to continue chasing the Avatar. He gets questioned by his crew. The crew are sitting in the kind of the hull of the ship, being all angry and like, whoa, why is Zuko like that? And then Iroh's like, yo, let me drop some knowledge bombs on you, and we learn
Truth
about
bombs.
learn about Zuko's backstory as well. In the end, the Avatar saves Sokka and the old man from the storm, and they also encounter Zuko and Iroh. And there's a moment that they have, but it's a very good episode. I really enjoyed this episode. I think we get to learn a lot more story about kind of the main characters, which I really appreciate after
the last episode.
Cody, you mentioned on your very first watch of this episode that this was a turning point for you in how you saw this series. What did that look like the first time?
I don't know. I feel like just this episode adds so much like context to the story. It gives like reasons as to like why maybe the two people who I kind of consider the main characters, Zuko and Aang, like why they do the things they do. We learn like why Aang is so kind of like I don't want to say ashamed to be the Avatar, but he's like scared to be the Avatar, and he doesn't want that responsibility on him, and he feels the shame of leaving, you know, the Air Temple and all his friends to die and stuff like that. And we also kind of see why Zuko acts in the way he does with like the whole Agni Kai thing from his father, and like why like he is so motivated in finding the Avatar and stuff like that. So I think it just adds like a lot of context that maybe was missing in some of the other episodes as to like the real driving motivations behind the two kind of main characters.
I think it's interesting that we've gotten basically halfway through book 1. And only now we're learning about the motivations behind these characters. I just think that's very interesting.
I think that the motivations are always kind of there, but they're just not so blatantly obvious in your face, like stated out like they did in this episode.
No, yeah, but I'm saying, like, even with the motivations that we see, I think that it's interesting that we get so far before we learn why the motivations are there.
Actually, building off of that, I feel like, of course, there's like very much like these ideas have been implanted throughout very, very subtly. And I think what I enjoyed about it, like you said, we're already like 12 episodes into the first season, and now they're really nailing it home. And I think if we had this any earlier, we wouldn't really have had the opportunity that we've been given to make, I guess, our own analyses of these characters to really,
Yeah.
like, I feel like
Form opinions.
yeah, to form our own opinions, to see them as they are instead of how they were. So I think that was, that was a really cool, like, directional choice.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with what Tim said, and I think that if this episode was maybe put earlier in the season, it might not have the same impact that it does that now that we see it here.
Yeah.
Because now we're already invested in these characters, right? We want to know like why they are doing the things that they're doing. So if we're giving those reasons right off the bat, we might not be invested in them in the same way that we are now, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, no, that's definitely true. I think with this episode, it's very interesting what Cody said earlier with Aang being almost ashamed. And I do think that ashamed is the right word. I think that he has this shame that is buried deep inside of him, maybe not stemming from being the Avatar, but from his actions since becoming the Avatar. And I do think he has that like deep-rooted shame inside of himself, and I think that this is the episode where we kind of see him take a step forward to putting that behind him. So now, going forward, I think that we see Aang grow more. Like before, in most of the episodes before, he's very, very childish. And now I think with this episode and with episodes in the future, we do see a deeper, more grown-up side of Aang.
I like what you said there is like this episode, he kind of puts like that shame and that trauma that he feels of the past behind him, like in the past where it belongs. And I do agree, and I think that that's perfectly like represented when him and his friends and Appa go careening into the ocean when at the end of the episode where he tries to save them and they end up in the ocean, and he enters into the avatar state maybe for the first time without just like pure rage. You know, all the other times that he's gone into the avatar state, it's been like very emotional and very like rage driven.
Absolutely.
Whereas this time it was like intentional, and there was no rage at all. It was like, I'm going to save my friends. I'm going to use the avatar state for good.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
I think maybe it might have been like a conscious choice, but I think it was also a lot of fear that was driving him into the avatar state there. Because it was pretty much the same as when he and Appa were alone under the water, except for now he had all of his friends with him. And so I think he probably thought, like, I need to do this, but it was probably driven by fear.
See, I would like to just push back on that a little bit, because I don't think it was... I think that what the writers and the animators tried to get out of that scene in particular is, like, the first time when he entered into the iceberg, that was fear. That was pure terror, right? He entered into the avatar state and he protected himself and he shut himself out from the world. But, like, this time when he entered it, it seemed more like intentional and like I'm not going to just shut myself out from the world. I'm going to embrace my destiny. I'm going to save the people who need saving.
Wow.
So maybe the first one was fear and terror of being the Avatar and being in that situation and everything, and I agree with you, that was him shutting everything out. But I think that this one maybe was fear of letting his friends down and fear of letting his friends die.
Yeah.
But I do think that there was fear.
Based on it just didn't seem like it was an action out of fear for me, I guess, is what I am trying to get at with that. And, like, you know, obviously we're going to each interpret it in different ways based on how we're seeing it. But just, to me, it just didn't seem like there was a lot of fear present.
I think finding the common ground between both of your statements, which I totally, like, you guys have pointed out very succinct. I'm using fancy words. I'm nervous. Yeah, I think the common ground between what both of you are saying is that definitely tapping into that essentially like the Avatar state is just a very heightened fight or flight instinct. I think something you guys both contrast when he was initially using it when he went to the iceberg the first time was I think that was just the very much the terror of like trying not to die, whereas I guess that was more so a flight response, definitely. Whereas when we see it in the storm this episode, when he's responsible for not only his life but for the life of his friends, I think he very much leans into that conflict more so like a fight response. I definitely see like the fear triggering those responses, so I definitely see the overlap in what both of you are saying. So I really something a phrase that came to mind while watching this episode was adversity bringing out, I guess, the truth of who you are, and I think that was very much paralleled in both Aang and Zuko's flashbacks and how they acted in the past and how they acted currently in this episode.
Like adversity brings out their character.
Yeah,
and like I think with the Agni Kai, we do get to see kind of like Zuko's character being not all bad.
Yeah.
Which like we've seen before, but like it really shows that like he's just trying his best. And like he was dealt a real shitty hand of cards for his father to have like scarred him and cast him out when he was like 14.
To be physically and psychologically abusive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And like to give him basically, let's think about this. The Avatar has not been sighted for 100 years. His father scars him and casts him out saying, hey, find the Avatar. We know he hasn't been sighted for 100 years, but this is the only way of getting your honor back. So basically, he gives him no hope of ever restoring his honor because nobody's seen the Avatar in 100 years. So how is he supposed to restore his honor then? And so he's basically cast out and has no hope of ever returning home. And like somehow we see him, he's fought through that. He's still trying. He's still like figuring it out. And like the fact that he is still trying is like, to me, it's crazy because to be cast out from your family and be given no hope of return is like definitely emotionally scarring for a child.
Yeah, I like something that I really appreciated about this episode is when we do see the Zuko flashback and we see the reason that he got into the Agni Kai with his father is because he spoke out of turn in a war meeting, but that's because a general's plan was to basically sacrifice an entire unit of fresh recruits to win a battle.
Yeah,
and
Zuko's heart was to save people's lives.
Exactly. And then we get to see that paralleled in the present when initially there was conflict between Zuko and his shipmates, the people that he was commanding, which triggers the whole flashback sequence on Zuko's part because, you know, it's disgruntled shipmates and Iroh talking. But in the end, his instincts are still to save people.
Yeah.
When the Avatar, they find out that the Avatar is close by them in the storm, and the crew is like, hey, should we go after the Avatar? He's like, no, I think we should all get to safety. And he puts the safety of his shipmates first, and he listens to his uncle again.
It's also cool that in doing that brought him closer to the Avatar. Like, if he had just tried to go after the Avatar, probably maybe he'd gone further into the storm, who knows. But by listening to his uncle and going into the eye of the storm, Appa pretty much came up right under his ship. Like, that's the closest he's been to the Avatar, pretty much.
Man, there was so much something that actually hit different because I guess I didn't really perceive this on my previous watches, but just how heartbreaking Gyatso's whole, because this is the first time I actually considered it, like, wow, what does this whole scenario look like from Monk Gyatso's perspective. Someone that you're responsible for and that you love and who you know as a child, a 12-year-old goes missing in the middle of a war, in the middle of a whole world that's about to engage in global warfare, and for him to not have, I just realized how whoa, sorry, I'm getting real flustered, but I'm really excited about this, but how Gyatso's whole life had that gaping hole and lack of closure of not knowing what happened to Aang at all.
Kind of gives like different perspective when we remembered that Gyatso had killed like a bunch of firebenders to let people escape.
Yeah.
Because like, I don't know, it just kind of gives a different light to that. Like Gyatso had this thing missing from his life, so he gave his life so that other people could escape.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. So I was just thinking about that while you were talking.
Go for it.
Oh,
Yeah, this is like something I just never actually. This is a perspective I never actually engaged with before. But not
even like having the world in turmoil, but having a 12-year-old go missing in a giant storm is terrifying enough. Let alone the world going into war.
And to have not known for your entire life that this person that you love is missing and is likely.
His entire life was probably only like a couple years after that.
It's so a long time to not know if somebody's missing or dead.
All right, fair. Yeah. That's fair.
And I don't know. And I wanted to compare and contrast the two the parallels of these father figures of the Fire Lord, actually of the Fire Lord and of Gyatso. Gyatso has this very just clear desire to draw his son figure Aang near, just like, hey, I'm not gonna let anyone take you away. And whereas the Fire Lord was like, yeah, get the fuck out of my palace because I'm insecure and I'm off my rocker and just a really bad parent. So
when we were in that flashback with Gyatso, like going into Aang's room being like, don't worry, I'm not gonna let anybody take you away. Yeah. Like, to me it struck me that like Aang never knew that. He never knew that Gyatso was fighting for him.
This is making it so much worse.
I know. I know it is. But like, Aang thought Gyatso was just gonna let them send him away, and it's so sad that Gyatso never got to like prove his love for Aang. I guess.
Wow. That does make it like.
I'm so sorry.
Oh my gosh.
I'm so sorry.
I guess everyone. I'm gonna cry.
That's so true though, because like Aang would have no way of knowing that, right? He would have no way. That like Gyatso burst into his room being like, I'm not going to let them... Oh, no.
Like, honestly, that frame when he reads the letters, the shock in his face, and the immediate turn towards the window, and it's like lighting. I was like, whoa, why is this hitting different?
Yeah, that's like a very emotionally charged scene for sure. You can just see, like, the pain on Gyatso's face. And, like, just, like, knowing that, like, you're willing to fight for this child... And just, like, be like, no, I'm going to be the father figure that you need or whatever. Yeah. And he just has run away because he thought that you were going to abandon him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Sorry, that was very sad.
Yeah.
You know what, though? Well, what part really struck me that I never noticed before is the absolute glee on Azula's face. When Zuko gets burned by his father.
Mm-hmm.
Like, oh my god, if that's not revealing of her character, I don't know what is.
Mm-hmm.
To be fair, if you were watching this for the first time, like fresh, have not seen the series before, you would probably miss that entirely because you have no idea who that person is.
And also you're more focused on Iroh.
Yeah.
But you just like, you have no idea who Azula even is until much later.
True. But, like, seriously, that just struck me as, like, wow, she's straight up evil.
Word.
She's just, like, taking delight in somebody's pain. Not even somebody, but her brother.
Yeah.
I think that is why Azula is the true bad guy of the entire series. Like, over everyone, Azula is actually, like, the true evil villain of the series.
Yeah, it's interesting that as the series goes on, she gets, like... I don't know, just like worse and worse almost. But like, the more we learn about her, sometimes you're like, I kind of want to take pity on her, but then she does something super evil and you're like, oh.
Yeah, you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
It's definitely the whole. I think she hides it the best, but honestly, it's the reality that hurt people.
Yeah.
And it's so crazy. She's so very calm and cool and composed throughout the majority of the series, and then it's almost like this little like. It's the truth, like all the broken. Yeah, the snap is honestly just the truth of her entire character, which we don't always have to make room for that. That never excuses knowing that someone's broken. Never excuses the wrong that they do to people, but it contextualizes it.
I agree that hurt people, but that is too simple of a thing to say to Azula. I think Azula in this show is represented as a true evil being. She deceives and she lies and she takes delight in people's pain and she turns against her friends. She betrays people. Like, she does all of the evil things and she does it with a smile on her face.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, the writers can kind of contextualize that and show us that she had a bad childhood. She grew up in a palace full of people that waited on her. Oh no. But like, it doesn't excuse her behavior.
It doesn't. No.
And I think she is like the epitome of evil in this show.
See, even after me just saying that Azula is the perfect bad guy, she is the perfect bad guy because she's not the epitome of evil, I find. I think, like, especially towards, like...
He's fired up.
Yeah.
Let's go.
Waving his hands around.
Because, like, towards the end, we see... It's, like, in one of the final episodes, but when we see her, like, break... Mm-hmm. Like, and she is like hysterical,
mm-hmm.
and she is still like trying to do evil, but you just can't help but like take pity on her and like full pity. Like, yes, there are other moments where you're like, oh, maybe you're just, oh no, you're evil. Oh, but like at the very end, when she like truly breaks and she is like hysterical, and for whatever reason, I forget the exact situation, but it's just like, oh, okay, there it is. There's that like vulnerability there. There's that like trauma now coming out from like the childhood and stuff. And it's just, I think that's why Azula is like such a great villain, is because yes, she is evil and she does do evil things, and I don't disagree with that. But I think that she is like still only like 95% evil and like
99.
Actually, while we're deep diving, she was legit in this episode for like 1 second, but let's deep dive Azula.
Yeah,
for a little
why
bit.
not?
I think Azula is a very interesting character in my eyes, because I have met people who have very similar mannerisms and mentalities towards people, who view people very as things rather than people, and always using manipulation as ways to control, as tools of control and everything. Oh, thank you. Yeah. So it's what's so interesting is that I had never actually had as a child I encountered people like that at a very young age. So it was so interesting getting to as a child not having the language to really put, I guess, descriptors of what these people were like. So it was so. What am I trying to say? I guess is that this character, as a child, experiencing this character as a child, really helped contextualize some of the unhealthy behaviors and practices that I was already experiencing. So I think, it's so intriguing how they were able to communicate, I guess, this very real type of evil in the world in a children's cartoon.
Yeah.
But also, as much as I 100% despise everything that Azula does, I think it wouldn't be right to completely write off the fact that all the evil she does is rooted, I guess, in the vulnerability of being human, and she just so happens to have taken a path to, like, everything she's done, it's like she needs to own up to. She's taken steps to walk a path where hurting people has been the only solution for her. And what's beautiful is that at the very end of the series, all of that hurt, all of that climb for power amounted to really nothing for her. And I think that's a comeuppance that I think it is Well, sorry, I don't even know what I'm saying anymore, but I think it's yeah, I think her life is just so empty at the very end.
Yeah.
Even though she tried to fill it with
like power.
With power, with status, with fear and manipulation. And I think her character shows that all those things don't really amount to anything because you're just alone and too scared to let anyone in at the very end.
Yeah.
I think
So
that's very well said.
And like I agree with what both of you have said. I understand she's pitiable at the end, blah blah blah, whatever. But like I think that there are possibly 2 characters in the show that are completely unredeemable, and it's Azula and the Fire Lord. I don't think that you could have an Azula redemption arc that would make sense with her character.
Apparently that's what they did in the comics.
Oh my god.
Apparently.
I would love that. I love redemption arcs.
Me too, I love them, but like within the context of this show, it would not make sense. Maybe in the comics later on in her life, but like not with how things happen in this show.
I think it totally leaves it open for a redemption arc, 100%. I think as soon as we don't give people, and I know these are fictional characters, obviously we draw parallels to real life here, but I think that as soon as you don't give anybody the chance for redemption, then like that is where like the true kind of like evil lies. Like even the worst, like I don't know. I'm just a big fan of you know,
love a good redemption. Right?
Yeah, I love a good
So,
redemption.
like,
Yeah.
okay,
At the same time, if I may say, I do believe like people do have the autonomy to choose and to do right or wrong.
Yes.
But at the same time, I don't think anyone that they have hurt owes them that redemption.
Yeah,
in
that's
any
what I was
form.
gonna say. I was like,
I agree
okay,
with that. I agree
so
with that.
that person, like even in real life, even in like people's lives, people, okay, they can change, they can be redeemed or whatever, but it doesn't mean that they're redeemed to that person. That person will always be hurt by them no matter what they do, and that means that they will never be redeemable to that person.
I'm not stating that because that person has changed, everybody needs to forgive them, or the people that they have harmed need to forgive that person. That's never warranted, especially if you've worked great harm upon somebody. I just feel like in the general society, they should have redemption. I'm not saying, do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
It's
not
like,
individually,
she's not-
but like in
yeah.
general.
nobody owes anybody forgiveness.
Yeah.
Like that is not, but it's just like, yeah, I feel like
She shouldn't be written off.
written off entirely. Yeah.
God, we
Okay,
did
I
a
see.
real deep dive on Azula.
She
first
was
time
in
we
the
saw her.
episode for 1 second.
She didn't even have any speaking parts.
Yeah. That's what we do.
She stole the show just like how she stole Ba Sing Se.
Ooh.
So
What episode are we talking about? Just kidding.
So Iroh in this episode is amazing. He's super level-headed. Just a perfect example of how Iroh is. And that's all I want to say about
This was
Iroh.
peak Iroh episode,
Iroh.
actually. Peak Iroh behavior.
Yes, this
I was
is
my
actually,
goodness.
I was actually gonna say it's actually quite interesting that kind of like the two main focal points of this show, Aang and Zuko, they are both technically raised by somebody who isn't their father.
yeah.
Because Iroh, it seems like, did most of the raising in terms of Zuko, and then Gyatso did all of the raising in terms of Aang, right? So they both had these kind of wise, sage-like figures in their lives that weren't necessarily their father figures.
But the difference is Zuko's actual father did irreparable harm to him.
Yeah.
So even though he had a nice wise uncle figure, he didn't exactly have the same upbringing that Aang did.
Well, yeah,
Because
no, obviously.
Aang wasn't harmed irreparably by his real father.
Yes, well, we don't actually know about Aang's real father, do we, at all?
If he
No.
was
Never-
harmed by Aang, if Aang was harmed by his father, it's literally never mentioned, which means it would have happened when he was too young to remember.
Yeah, sure. But I'm just saying, it's like, I don't think that honestly, Zuko's probably worse off for that fact.
Yeah,
I think the something that I'm hearing from Cody is the idea of almost like found the concept of kind of like found family, and the people who are fathers to people are really the ones who choose to
be there.
to be that,
Yeah.
to be present and intentional in investing in younger people's lives.
Yeah, no,
You don't-
absolutely.
You don't need...
You don't
to be
need blood.
Yeah, you
think-
don't need blood to be related to
I
somebody
think-
or for them to be your
yeah.
family. I just want to carry on with
No,
this point for a
no,
second.
that's what I'm saying. Is like this entire show like embodies the idea of found family.
I agree. I would 100%
yeah.
The
agree.
entire show is about
Yeah.
that, basically.
We see it in all aspects too. It's like
in all the relationships.
in all the relationships, yeah.
Yeah.
I want Appa to adopt me.
Have a big, nice, fluffy uncle. Hey, Appa, give me some wise wisdom.
Go
It
ahead.
is actually kind of interesting that again this show is like almost a direct comparison between Zuko and Aang, and we actually get to see a little bit of Zuko in Aang when he is recounting the story of his past, and when he almost enters into the Avatar state when he's getting angry, right? And it
Yeah.
seems like both Zuko and Aang initially in these early seasons draw on like intense emotion or rage to kind of activate their like greatest powers.
Yeah, that's very true.
And like as the story progresses and as the TV show progresses into later seasons, they kind of learn how to master those emotions and like direct them into more positive ways.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
also master their greatest powers without tapping into rage.
Without tapping into rage, yeah.
Sorry. I just have a thought on Iroh.
Yeah.
The fact that he did this sick lightning bending and nobody saw him. Because Zuko
Just
and
another day, what?
everybody was climbing the ladder. This guy was hanging on for dear life, and Iroh was just on the ship of the deck. Yeah, I got this. So it was a fucking lightning bend.
Oh my gosh, this is contextualizing this a lot more now. Oh my goodness, because like he seemed to be anticipatory of like the lightning coming, like taking those deep breaths, and like he felt the disturbance in the force. Doesn't lightning normally hit the highest point of something?
Yeah.
So he literally made himself a lightning rod while the people were climbing on the ladder.
Wow, that is. I did not even realize.
What?
Good
Oh
job,
my
Tim.
gosh. No, you brought it up. I'm like, wait, I'm getting goosebumps. What?
Go, Iroh.
Yeah.
I did want to point out we did see some Pai Show playing today, and it was not with Iroh. It was with Gyatso and Aang. And was that a White Lotus tile I saw?
I feel like it's whenever
I
they
think it was
play
a
Pie
white-
Show, it's always a nod to the White Lotus. I feel like they don't play Pie Show in this show. Pie Show in
Yeah.
this show without it being a nod to the White Lotus.
How could you not? You
Yeah.
simply cannot.
And it seems like so far, like we've seen it 2 times, and like was Gyatso a part of the White Lotus?
We don't
or-
know.
I want to
guess-
know.
Yeah, I guess.
Yeah.
we wouldn't
I'm
know.
inferring that. Let me put my
Yeah.
conspiracy hat on real quick.
Tim's conspiracy corner.
Yup. My hat just says yes. Some people have the Avatar state. I just have the conspiracy hat.
It's just a hat that literally just says yes on it.
Come up with your craziest theories. He'll say yes, to them.
I did one of the emotional beats of the story is when Aang was processing that sense of abandonment when he said like, how could they just throw me away or like just want me to leave kind of thing. We do see him conjure some whirlwinds in the caves, and he actually glows in the Avatar state for like a split second. So that was a nice little nod, because I know you guys were talking about tapping into those emotions, being able to use it in a healthy way.
Actually,
So-
yeah, something about that I was going to say is like, Aang is really mad, and he's like, how could they do this to me? How could they do this to me? Blah, blah, blah. And then he's like, sorry, Katara, I shouldn't have gotten mad about this. And Katara's like, she gives like permission. She's like,
feel.
no, like these are reasonable emotions to feel. Like, please talk to me, let it out, because these are not unreasonable things to feel from what you've been through.
Word.
Which I think is like really mature of her to be like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, okay, you can say sorry, but like it's not your fault, and you need to like process it, and you need to realize that these are okay emotions for this situation.
I love the amount of like emotional space that her as a character, but especially this episode, like she's been so intentional in creating that emotional openness with Aang, even from the moment we see him wake up from his bad dream to being for him in the cave and helping him
Yeah.
figure out his emotions there. So that was really, really cool.
That's actually something that I really never noticed about the character of Katara until like just now. Is yes, she is that. She is a very good character for that, and creating that like emotional space for people to just be like, no, that's like that's a reaction. You had that reaction. It's okay. Those are emotions. Let's deal with those emotions, you know? Like, it's okay
Let's
to feel those
process them.
emotions. It's when you let your emotions kind of get the better of you that's when it becomes an issue, right?
Yeah.
But she's like, yes, emotions happen. Let's work on that.
That's why, like, some of my favorite Katara moments is when she loses her cool. Because it's like, wow, it takes a lot to make her lose her cool, but there you go. She's gonna fucking destroy you now, but good luck. I don't know.
Yeah.
I love her as a character.
Oh, snoring kitty. It's so cute.
Yeah. No, this is, like I said, this is probably... this is one of the better episodes in the season for sure that I'm remembering.
Like this is definitely like the point of no return of like starting the series.
Yeah.
It's like I love these
you get
characters. I can't stop.
Once you get to this episode, you're either hooked or you're not gonna watch. Like, I don't know. You're probably hooked by this point if you've watched it up to now.
Yeah, I feel like this is the turning point, and if you got past the last episode, it's just like, okay, like this is when like everything just like unfolds from here, and we just like learn so much about all the characters
and the world
and everything.
God, I can't wait till we get to the North Pole. I got some things to say.
She got some things. She's fired up.
Honestly, though, the next episode is so good.
Let's not talk about the next episode.
Right.
It's the Blue Spirit, though.
We don't
it's
know.
probably one of my favorite episodes.
Hold her back. Hold her back.
Hold it back. We're talking about this episode.
I do. Speaking of this
I just got
episode,
really excited. I saw the name and the title of the next episode. I'm like, yes, this is one of my favorite episodes.
it's a really, really good. Something I wanted to point out, the fact that the like when you're pitching the show, you'd be like, oh, it has action, has like a magic system, there's gonna be a really cool animation. I just want to say it still had those things, but it wasn't the meat of this episode. A lot of it was character driven and helps the audience engage in empathy and being invested in these characters for the people that they are, instead of the spectacle of this amazing show. There was some primo bending moments, not gonna lie. We got a little lightning direction. You had that little moment with the water bending that you liked.
Oh, yeah. When Aang saves the old man in soccer from the ship, and he uses water bending to split the mast in half. That was sick.
That was pretty cool.
It was juicy. And it didn't even have to be the main meat of the show. It was just everything married so perfectly.
Yeah.
And it was so cool having a heart driven episode. This is like the anti Grand Canyon. What was it called? The anti Great Divide.
Yeah. I really liked how this gave Zuko a really personal side.
Yeah.
One that we haven't exactly seen his character exhibit.
Yeah.
But like it gave him empathy, and it gave him something that we can relate to.
Yeah.
I feel like we have seen that in past episodes.
But not nearly as much.
Not as much as this, but the episode I'm very specifically thinking of is when Uncle Iroh gets captured.
Fair.
We do see like Zuko's softer side a little bit in that episode, for sure.
I feel like we see his like family connection in that episode.
Yeah, his
Whereas,
softer
like,
side.
Yeah, but like this episode, the crew aren't his family, but he's still caring for them.
Yes, that's true.
And like the soldiers, he doesn't even know them, but he's like, yo, you can't use them as bait.
Yeah, but like that's what,
So I feel like we get to see him relate to other people other than his family, is what I'm trying to say.
Fair. I do like the parallels of the recounting of like the backstories of how they're both done over like a bonfire. Like Aang and Katara are doing it in front of a fire in a cave, and then Iroh's doing it with the crew of the ship, like in the
hold.
in the hold of the ship with it around a flaming barrel. It is kind of neat how they kind of added that kind of. It's like an added story element into it. It's like, let's gather around the fire and let me tell you a tale.
I think honestly though, that aspect is pulled a lot from real life. Like, when do you have the best conversations? When do you learn the most about somebody? It's usually around a campfire, or like later in the evening when like your guard is down and you've been sitting together and chatting for a while, right? Yeah. So like, I feel like in a lot of cultures and societies, sitting around a fire is a very intentional way
of sharing
things.
Yeah,
no, I would definitely agree.
Yeah, a symbol of sharing. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah,
that's beautiful.
I also do like that we get the kind of like actions speak louder than words thing from Iroh. Like, obviously in the beginning, Zuko is kind of saying some hurtful things towards the crew and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, when like it really matters, he puts himself in harm's way to save the helmsman of the ship. He rushes into the middle of a lightning storm to save the helmsman. So his actions kind of speak a lot louder than his words. Which I think we kind of learned that about in the Jet episode in the opposite way. Whereas like he was a sweet talker, but his actions showed that he was shit. Whereas like Zuko is like the opposite.
Yeah, he's like, I don't care if you die. Oh wait, I do. I'll go save you now.
Yeah.
I think this was probably, I'm trying to imagine experiencing this as like a young kid around age 10 or 12, being like, probably feeling very confused. It was like, because if you're used to that black and white narratives in all cartoons of like there's good guys and there's bad guys, this would be an episode that would have really like shaken you to the core. It's like, but they're wearing red. Why do I like the characters that are wearing red? I thought they're bad guys. But then you just see like, wait. It plants the idea of like, oh, everyone's human. Everyone's going through stuff. Even the good guy and the bad guy, quotation marks, have reasons for doing the things that you could relate to and understand. And it's like, it's really cool. I wanted to explore, because I know I said it earlier, but the idea of adversity. Please edit that out, please, Cody. Of how anniversary.
You got it, Tim.
Of how adversity brings out our true natures, and how that isn't always necessarily good or bad. When Aang was faced with the adversity of being rejected by the monks, his nature was to run away. And to go into the Avatar state, into a ball of ice and stuff. But when we see him faced with the adversity of his life, of everyone he cares about being in danger, his nature to protect was brought out. I think that was also paralleled with Zuko. Like, he's always been... oh, sorry, what am I trying to say? Why, it sounds so much better in here, you know what I'm saying? And then just so the words...
I think I know what you mean. Like, like Zuko...
It brought out his true colors. Like,
yeah, it brought out his, like, oh, this crew, I've been traveling with them for a couple of years. Like, they are important to me, and I'm going to try my best to save them. And, like, it brought out that protective nature in Zuko. And I think that's what I was, like, also saying earlier. Is like, with the soldiers we see in the flashback, like, it brought out that protective side. Like, these are my people. I was brought up as a prince. These are my people.
Like, he's...
brought out that protectiveness. Same as like Aang is like, oh, Aang's like, my people are in danger, gotta save them. And Zuko's like, Zuko's people is an entire nation, so it's a little different, I guess.
Yeah, I think that kind of what you're putting out there is that when we are put in the shit, whatever that shit may be, we get to see how people act. And the way that people handle situations and the way that they act speak a lot louder than whatever they say that they would do, right?
Yeah.
Like, you can literally say anything. It's not hard to talk. You can... It's
I'm struggling, but yeah. Go on.
But you know what I mean? Like, I could say, I'm going to fucking climb Mount Everest, and I can say that to the nines, and I could truly believe it, but until I climb Mount Everest, it's just me saying shit, right?
Yeah, or like, I can say, oh, I really love animals, but every time I meet an animal, if I like...
kick it, then...
Do I love them then? I don't do this, guys. I love my cats.
Yeah.
I've only seen her kick them once. I'm joking. I did that. I'm joking. I'm serious. She's never, ever.
I spoil them rotten.
But yeah, this was a great episode.
Yeah.
Probably one of my, I think it might be my favorite of the season so far.
Wait till next episode.
I think this is honestly such a sleeper episode too, because it's just like, if I think immediately like, oh, amazing episode season 1, this probably wouldn't have been in like my immediate remembrance, but just taking it in now is like, oh, this is juicy.
Yeah.
It is a very juicy.
I agree. Like, I don't actually even remember the episode as a whole from my first watch through, but as we got to the episode, I remember being like, this was like a key pivotal moment for sure. So do you guys have any final thoughts on this episode?
I don't think so. I liked how the flashbacks were in the same style as Avatar, but when they were doing like their different thoughts, it was in a different style. That was pretty cool.
Fair.
Or like memories, I guess, were in a different style, but like the flashbacks weren't.
Yeah.
I liked that stylistic choice. That's pretty much all I have to say. Oh,
Sorry,
Tim's
your
dying.
kitty's on my lap and I'm melting. My brain is gone. I'm so sorry. Sorry.
No worries. So the only thing that I would like to say is I'd like to give a shout out to friend of the show, Anthony, who actually has another really cool podcast called the Sci-Fi Punks. They actually did an episode, just one episode, on Avatar: The Last Airbender, and I listened to it. And Anthony actually drew parallels between like Zuko as the main character, and it actually got me thinking about kind of that, and that's why I kind of believe that Aang and Zuko are kind of like dueling main characters of the same story. So just a shout out to Anthony, Sci-Fi
Anthony?
Punks. He's on everything. Go check it out if you want another cool podcast where they talk about nerd shit.
Yeah. Get that nerd shit in you and stay hot, people.
Yep.
If you liked this episode of the podcast, why not leave a review? Whether you're listening on iTunes, Stitcher, Google Podcast, whatever podcatcher you may be listening on, ratings and reviews are huge. They help us to break through those evil algorithms, and it will help us to reach the most amount of glorious Avatar fans that we can possibly reach. If you would like up-to-date information regarding this podcast, follow us on Instagram. You can find us at the.last.podbender on Instagram. If you would like more information about all of the shows that Froggy Style Productions produces, including this one, follow them on social media, and you can find them at Froggy Style Productions on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. For more ways in which you can support the show, visit fsproductions.ca.